Welcome to possibly one of the most exciting episodes of this channel, because I might have found a Super 7 item that I actually like. Let's find out. So today we're looking at the Simpsons Deep Space Homer, and you know what? It looks good online. There have been some positive comments out there, but there are also people that love the garbage from Super 7. In reviews on here, we always do an overview of the box and everything that's inside of it. Then we look at details, articulation, and posing, followed up with an overall rating. Let's get into it. So classic Super 7 brown box. If you haven't had one of their items before, this is standard with their packaging. So it's just a nice level of protection that you're gonna get, and we'll see that kind of through and through as we open this thing up. So on the back of it, we're getting all this information. So all these little bits and pieces, same stuff that we see here, we're gonna see on the inside of the box, but we have a label, we have some, oh, I think this seems new, or maybe I just didn't pay attention on the other packages, but follow them on social media. Here we go. So let's open this thing up and see what the package looks like. Unfortunately, with these, when you're looking at the front of it and you slide the box out, it's the back side of the box. But that's a good looking image. I'm already loving that. And the reason I went with this one specifically is actually, not only do I like The Simpsons, but I love space. I actually have another channel that I haven't made content for since like August of last year. But whatever, it was a lot of space stuff. So here, let's get this plastic off so we can get a better look. This looks like some new treatment on the plastic here. So they actually tape this up now. Interesting. And we're gonna rip it right open because I don't need no plastic sleeve. But it's just another one of those nice layers of protection that Super 7 does with all of their packages. And you know, this is where they shine the most historically. Everything that I have done from them, packaging has always been on point. So here we're looking at the front of the box, which obviously has that classic introduction to the show, right? That The Simpsons. I'll add audio over that, maybe. But you can see that this is like a embossed gloss finish. This is nice. So nothing unusual there. I love that the packaging goes all the way around. You just get this nice continuation of the clouds. So on the top of the box, we've got Ultimates. On the bottom of the box, we have basically everything that we saw on the brown box, but now here on the bottom of this piece. And I love that it actually has like a drop shadow. So as an artist myself, I'm really always in love with the packaging. And this also has a gloss finish, and it is like beveled off the box itself. So let's remove the sleeve. Oh man, look at that. That is beautiful. Mine has already, well, man, I'm glad I'm not an inbox collector, because that would drive me absolutely nuts that that plastic little thing has been dislodged or whatever, which it's interesting that that kind of tab or whatever is historically something you would see on a NECA item. So it is interesting to see that happening with Super 7. But look at that. That is a beautiful looking figure. You're getting a lot of accessories and things inside this already. Something else in the background there. And another illustration and more of this gloss finish for the illustration. And that is a really nice touch. So if you wanted to know season and episode that this figure and version of Homer comes from, you get all, I love this inclusion. This is really, really cool. So with packaging in Super 7, again, it's always great. The one thing that I feel that they miss out on, that a lot of brands fell with, is adding who sculpted it, who painted it, who came up with the packaging. Who are those people? I'm always very interested in seeing who that is, because some of those creators have social media. And aside from The Simpsons, Fox, and Matt Groening, who do you follow? But let's just jump into this. Let's take all of this stuff out and get a close look at it. And the sleeve inside this one is just a bunch of illustrations of all the characters over the years. I mean, they have a never-ending supply of figures to really include, but it does repeat, so you can kind of see there right there, right? So it does repeat, but that's a nice treatment of the inside of the box. You know, it's nothing too crazy or character specific, but I dig it. Which is kind of like a wild thing to consider, that this line could easily surpass what NEC is doing with the animated TMNT line. That has felt endless so far, and it just keeps coming and keeps coming. And it is an interesting choice that they decided to go with these random versions of the main characters. Like, you don't have regular versions of the Simpsons characters. You have Moe, and then they have Krusty the Clown that's coming out, but they don't have regular versions of the main characters yet. So to pick a random season 5 episode versus like season 1, episode 1, let's do the Simpsons. But whatever, it's gonna be a lot of stuff coming this way. So let's get everything out of this plastic and see what we got. Okay, so there we go. Wow, it looks so good. And the only thing that's kind of weird to me so far is all of these chips. They look great, but they're gonna get lost immediately. Who can keep all of these things? You're gonna have to put those things in a Ziploc bag and just like put them in some kind of drawer or something, because they're gonna get lost real fast. But man, overview. So we got 2 left hands, 2 right hands. The bag of potato chips, which are closed, which is an interesting choice. I feel like they should be opened, maybe? We have 7 chips, but they're all the same. So I would like maybe have some folded chips, which are the best chips, right? You always want the folded chips. Come on. And then maybe some that were chewed up or something. But then we have his plutonium or whatever, radiation, this radiation, is that what it is? I don't know. They don't tell you on the box what any of this stuff is, so you gotta look it up or just know because you watched the show. And then we have the ant farm, which looks pretty nice. It's an interesting treatment here. Anyway, we have 2 heads plus the head that's on him by default and his full astronaut costume, which is just how he is. You can't take him out of it. So let's look at details. So starting with the hands, they're just gonna be simple mirrored versions of themselves. So you got these gripping hands, which I wonder is what all can we really get gripped based on the different sizes of the items here. We've got the other hands, which are a little bit more open. And these are fine. I mean, this is a simple design, right? There's not gonna be a lot of details in a cartoon, but then you get a hold of these chips, which seem to all be the same mold. But look at the details of those chips. So they've done an excellent job, the sculpting. Oh, man, what team handled this? Great job to all of them. But the bag of chips, look at that. That is wonderful. So a couple little scratches, no big deal, but it's, it's a cartoon. This, whatever. Plutonium radiation stuff, I don't know. It's very, very simple. It's just a green stick. It doesn't look like it's in anything. It just is what it is. And the ant farm, which they just use like a clear acrylic or something. So you can see the ants in there. A little harder. You get the white of him behind it, right? That might help. So look at that. So nicely done. I mean, it's a simple item that I don't know how else you would execute to give it this look, but I love it, and it stands. We've got the open mouth version of Homer, which you can put all the chips and stuff in, I guess, his mouth. The only downside to this layout is that, of course, he's in space and everything's floating, right? The chips are floating, he's floating through and eating them, and I feel like it goes along to this classic song. Is that right? Anyway, there's obviously no way to do 0 gravity with this. So what do? How do you get your chips floating in the air? Do you just hang them off a string or something? Like if I were to put them in one of these blocks, I guess the best solution for me is to just tape them to a string or something and have them at different heights. And then ideally either have him on a stand or also maybe hanging from string, but he might be too heavy for that. Anyway, as far as details go, we've got obviously the paint around his hair. This is all paint. I don't see colored plastic. Like even this yellow, which probably is just colored plastic, it feels painted. Like it's probably a matte finish put on it. So thank you. This is already such a good experience. So we got inside the mouth. You can even see like deep into the throat. They cut into that and sculpted all of that. I love it. And the hair is pliable. Look at that. That's such a cool idea. I mean, some quality control issues, some weird choices, but you know, every brand has them at some level. But oh, man, if I were to change anything about any of this, if I could only choose one thing, I believe I would want more black outline stuff, right? So I think that the eyes seem strange because they don't have a black outline. And I understand you either have to commit to doing those outlines, like to show that it's an animation, or you don't. But for something like this, it just shows that the Simpsons don't have eyebrows. So there you go, his classic woo. There's some paint, and I saw this online from some other people that posted on Twitter, but the paint that goes outside, that's a little rough. Yeah. And I don't know how bothered I should be by that. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's kind of off-putting once you see it. So if you get it at the right angle, not a big deal, I guess. As far as like the sculpt and stuff, the mouth looks great. It is, his like bearded face is an inserted piece into the sculpt, which is good because you have less of these kind of lines where it's like the seams and stuff, which I don't know if it's gonna pick up. Yeah, so there you go. So you can see around his nose, he's got that like seam there, but by this face being a separate part, you're getting less seams, which is really nice. And then Homer in his suit with this head. So we can take this off. So let's look at the helmet, the details here, right? So it doesn't come apart at all, so don't try to separate it. So on the outside, it's very nice. It's painted well. I mean, there's again some like imperfections, but we're also looking at it super close on camera here. But the paint colors seem a little off, and again, I don't know that that's gonna really get picked up on camera, but this is almost like an eggshell, and then this is more like a pure white. But again, just getting picky on it. I think they had to paint the clear plastic here, and then this is probably just white plastic, so that's probably what happened there. Piece of plastic around his head to keep everything in place for shipping. So let's get that head off. Around his neck, we had this piece of plastic, again, just for shipping's sake, so you can get rid of that. And we'll put his head back on. So just like the other head sculpts, looking good. It has a separated beard from the main head sculpt, so you're getting less seams and stuff. The eyes do just look a little strange, and I really think a black outline. Like who can paint these for me with a perfect hand, not to get because if I do it, it's gonna be all over the place. But the black line would also help blend that kind of overlap of the white into the yellow. But again, he's got that squishy hair on the top, insert brain here, and I love how handwritten this font looks. A little bit of a mistake there in the R, but again, we're not gonna get too lost in those imperfections because that's just gonna happen with everybody, especially when it's painted. And that's one thing that they have been failing on the last few figures. The newest stuff, like everything from Robin Hood, has been a real, like, awful experience. But this, I'm really happy with. I can't believe, honestly, I can't believe that this is a Super 7 item. So looking at the rest of it, we've got some great sculpt work in the zipper here. We've got this patch on the front of him, which is 3D, it's not just painted onto him. The pocket on his arm, which has some really nice sculpted details in there. For an animated figure, you really wouldn't expect that kind of detail, like the fold and stuff in the pockets, but I'm loving it. This is really nice. We've actually got stars in there, so that's probably some kind of sticker that's going on in there. Big fan, big fan. This is really good. Again, with the pockets. So it's the same mold and then flipped. So they printed the mold, copied it, essentially pasted it, and hit horizontal flip. So it is the same thing. So when they were sculpting this, they could just plop, flip it, plop. Same thing in the legs here. You get the same folds going on around the bottom of the pants and stuff, but that's fine. I'm totally okay with that. Just pointing it out, really. But everything is looking really, really nice. I honestly can't believe it. So the bottom of the feet, we actually have peg holes, which again, thank you for including those. So this says 20 TV, which would be 20th century, MG, and then Super7 China. That's it for details. Let's look at articulation. So let's start at the top. I don't expect a lot out of this figure with how bulky stuff he is, but he's got some gaps in there, so we might get some good articulation. So let's start with the head. So it spins all the way around, and as we saw earlier, there is a peg ball joint in there. So looking down a little bit, looking back or up, pretty good. That's actually some nice range considering what's going on around his neck and stuff. Technically you're getting some tilt in there. It's just not a whole lot, but you can kind of really push it over to get some more. So it has some give before the head pops off. So you can get some more than you might expect there. The arms, so let's start out into a T pose. That's as far out as they go. So not great. Yeah, so not a lot going on there. The patches are getting in the way. That's the biggest problem there. I feel like they could go further without the patches. But the patches are key. You kind of have to have them, right? Can I rotate the arms? Yes, all the way around. It was a little hesitant at first for some reason. But yeah, so you can get those all the way around. You got the elbows, which turn all the way. And these are painted. So these joints are unusual for Super 7. This is more of NECA's territory where you get some really hard, solid joints. But I think that's just because of paint. But elbow articulation, you're getting almost a 90 degrees, which is really surprising considering how thick he is, and that is just a single joint elbow. But the way they cut this was really smart, so you can get a little bit more range out of it. So the wrist goes all the way around, no problem. And then we can see the hinge here. It's just gonna go in and out, which actually has some pretty decent range. Again, considering how this is designed, you're getting more than I would have expected. So the torso area, you can spin it all the way around. You can kind of see inside what's going on there. Look at that, how much gap you get when you turn it sideways. But that's okay. When you go forward, not really anything forward. There is a little bit of range going forward and backward as far as like an ab crunch. It's just nothing spectacular. Again, I mean, nobody would be able to do that in a real astronaut suit, so that's okay. We got the legs here, so if we do the splits, that's as far out as they go. Again, I think a lot of this is gonna be okay because if this was a real astronaut suit, right, you're not gonna have a whole lot of movement. But we're gonna kick forward now. Let's see what we got out of that. Barely, and backwards. Now it is on some kind of ball joint, so there's a little bit of like swivel happening there, but you can kind of see the ball joint in there. So you can get some random bits of articulation out of there, so it's not too bad with all things considered. Then the knee, we're gonna have, let's see, not too bad actually. And then straight down, and does it swivel at the knee? Yes, full rotation at the knee, no problems with that. But it also bends this way, so that's kind of interesting, right? So if you were gonna turn the leg, you're not gonna be able to turn the knee in that way. It's gonna go back. You can find some good angles, but nothing too wild. Now around the ankle, what do we got here? So full rotation, then you can see the joint right there. So upwards and downwards, and is there anything else? No, so that's it. And then of course the helmet, which just locks into place by pressure. There's no particular locking things. You don't have to like twist it into place. Looks good. So exchanging out one of the hands, maybe. There we go. So let's get the semi-open hand. It just pops right in, simple. This is a classic peg. And still got some great range on there, which I'm loving. Wow. And I think as far as head sculpts go, which one would be the best one, man? One of these two, of course. I mean, if you're gonna have him with the chips and stuff, then obviously you want that one. But this one, that's pretty classic Homer too. Yeah, I mean, you can force it, you can get it in there. His hair on the top of his head is definitely touching But if you wanted that and to display it that way, I mean, you certainly could. He's looking at the top of the visor though, so it would be a little off. And this one would do just fine because it's a very similar sculpt to that. Actually, now that we're talking about it, that's essentially the exact same sculpt. They just changed the mouth part. So that's actually smart on their part. Print the head once or twice and then just make different mouths. Aw, I have a little bit of a nick there. They could do endless expressions except for, oh man, the drooling face. I hope that in one of the future Homers that we get him with the drooling face with his eyes kind of halfway shut. So they will need to do some new head sculpts for that. But as long as everything makes sense and is consistent in size, whatever Homer you get as they make more and more, all of the heads would be swappable. So that's really cool. That's articulation. Let's get into posing. There we go. You know, this is changing things for me with Super 7. This is what I've been hoping for out of them. The stuff that I've been reviewing lately has been older because that's what I've been able to get my hands on thanks to some friends sending stuff. But I am really surprised with this. So when it comes to rating, we're gonna start with the details, and the details are fantastic. There are some minor imperfections, but what they have done is really, really great. I suggested that they put black outlines around the eyes. I, of course, don't know without seeing that to see if it would actually look good, but I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 5. I think it's a really well done figure. So details, let's get into articulation. So articulation is weak, very obvious. It's very limiting, but that comes with the territory of this suit. That's just gonna happen no matter what figure you get. But I am really interested to see what NECA does with Donatello from the animated TMNT line. If that thing is gonna have more articulation, maybe we'll be surprised and be like, wow, so that's how you give this thick figure more articulation? Maybe it won't work, we'll see. But this thing, I'm gonna have to give it a 3 out of 5 because the articulation's not too great. But they added a lot of stuff to allow for things to work. Even as thick as it is, you still get more than you would expect. So that's articulation, and when it comes to posing, you can get a handful of stuff. There's nothing extraordinary out of this. The good thing is that it is heavy. It's very surprising how heavy this thing actually is. Because of how heavy he is and how thick the feet are, you can actually get him to stand even with different poses. So like you wouldn't expect necessarily that would work, but there's enough weight and distribution that works. So you don't have to have a stand, even in the peg hole. And the joints aren't really loose. So I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening, but posing, again, it's limited. So we just have to give it like a 3 out of 5. You can't do a whole lot, but it's a good figure and they've got some nice accessories and stuff. Those are the scores. That's the overall rating. But the biggest question is it worth it? It's $55, which is always hard to swallow with Super 7 when you compare them to brands like NECA who are just crushing it at like $32, $34, even $37. Like, they have such great pricing that it makes this, which maybe this logistically is the proper price, but I don't know, because NECA just crushes it with what they do. Is it worth it? Man, I love this figure. I think they did an excellent job every step of the way with what they could do. Man, now I really want to order Mo. So is it worth it? Yeah. If you're a Simpsons fan, yeah. And I'm a NASA, space, all that fan. So they're just really, I was taking a gamble ordering this thing, but man, yeah. So here we go. Officially, Super7, $55. Is it worth it? Yes, if all of these categories line up for you, go order it. It's great. Man. Well, I guess I need to order some of the other stuff that's coming out. I'd like to pre-order Krusty the Clown, because he's just the normal version. And I really want Ralphie, but he's got this kind of hair, the soft looking stuff, and it's real thick, but it looks really strange. So maybe I won't do that one. Ralphie? Anyway, wow, unexpected ending to this one. But if you want to see me review another Super7 item, then watch this video here. We'll see you next time.